Hello and welcome to another video. This was a funny one to pick something to record on because it is the Friday just before Milwaukee, and I was going to do like one of those videos like how to prepare for a DLC, but I thought, nah, if you're Friday night, you're probably not going to watch that. And then I thought, well, I do like a heavy meta thing. I was like, nah, because you probably should be practiced very heavily on your deck, know what you want to pick and play and all those things. So I was like, I've been posting a little bit about set 10. I've been enjoying looking at set 10 and talking to a few friends about it. So I was like, oh, maybe this might just be a nice comforting video so you don't have to think about switch your brain off from set 9 serious meta for a bit and you can just chill out and watch this me chat about predictions of what's going to happen in set 10. So yeah, I just thought I'd go through some like one real early concept list that was very nice that a friend started playing it and telling me all the swaps that they take out, like swap out for this list. As I say, this was generally a concept idea I had. We actually got a proxy red card in there because Dreamborn hadn't updated Goliath yet. But we do have Goliath on these slides, and don't worry, I can walk through all the cards. But yeah, it was nice they got to play it and said it worked fine. You know, it operated, and they'd said all the different changes they'd make with the list so far. So yeah, like I say, this was what kind of noticed, and I think I'm not the only one, and someone pointed this out to me very early on. So there's not all original ideas, but with the Cinderella and the Goliath card, and actually I'm going to move the slide over one because I can show you the Goliath card on the other screen, which is this. This has the enchanted version of it, which is Dusk Till Dawn. The ability at the end of each player's turn, if they have more than 2 cards in the hand, then choose and discard cards until they have 2. If they have fewer than 2 cards in their hand, they draw until they have 2. And it has the Stone by Day feature, which is if you have 3 or more cards in your hand, this character can't be readied. And it's a Gargoyle Hero 6-drop, 6/5. Quest for two, but it being a 6-drop kind of made it very interesting to me, and I just fascinated by the card, and I think it's pretty cool. It comes with its own sort of dock effect, if we think of it that way, because of the ability to refresh a hand up to 2. And the version that I've been playing, well, the one that I'd mentioned, it's on the channel, there's a few videos on it, is the Beyond the Horizon builds that I had for Sapphire Steel, which felt like kind of the best way to build the deck, in my opinion, which was ramp heavy and just play big drops every turn. That's the objective of Sapphire Steel post rotation, is just ramp high and then play big drops, because you can't do things like dime tap for a ton of lore and you can't play around with items anymore. But what you can do is take advantage of the steel bigger characters like Tinkerbell, which isn't in this list actually right now. But you could easily put Tinkerbell in it. Like I say, it's completely a concept idea. But there's just a few bigger characters here. You got Tinkerbell, you could put Tinkerbell, Jasmine, Namari, Vincenzo, and then of course you can use the Sapphire ones like Robin Hood and Hades in there. But the idea is right now I've got Beyond the Horizons list. If you check my Dreamborn at all, it's the same thing. You ramp on 2 and then you hope to ramp the next turn. That would get you to 6 ink, and then you're only 1 ink off, so then you play a 6-drop on that turn, and then from that onwards, you play the Hades, you play the Vincenzo, and you play these big bodies every turn. That felt great. It is operating, it does work in set 10, but the only issues is if you're ramping on 2 and you want to ramp on 3, the only real kind of card that feels appropriate to ramp on that turn with is Pleakley, which means that you'd have to have other characters on the board to ramp with you. So if you've only found Sail, it kind of doesn't really work. And if you don't find that Pleakley, you end up having to like Tipo, and then your turn 3 is just a Sail, because you can't really afford to throw more cards on the board, because you probably don't have any, because they're all expensive and you can't pay 2 ink. And you also don't want to screw up your inking pattern by just throwing a Captain Hook on board and saying, oh wait a minute, next turn I'm gonna have to ink this 5-cost Jasmine that I actually want to play, or this Robin Hood that I want to play. But with this new Cinderella card, we have the ability to ramp on 2, and then we get to play a 4-drop, which allows us to ramp, and then we can play into the 6-drop, and then we can get the game plan working. And with the Goliath card, like I say, it has this ability to kind of refill our entire hand, really, with the Dusk Till Dawn effect there. At the end of each player's turn, you have to draw up to 2. So you can, and you end up finding with how expensive ramp is in a format when you don't have Hiram. If you look at decks like blue, green, and even Blurple, I guess with Blurple is Amethyst card draw, so it's just nuts that they never run out of cards. And it looks like they won't be in set 10 either. But for the other decks like green, blue, they hope to like capitalize on playing Clarabelle down and drawing a bunch of cards from you. And Sapphire Steel was kind of hoping to just maybe not capitalize on much card draw they could use Beyond the Horizon, but they just wanted to play a big character every turn. And like I say, with this concept idea, it's one that just gets you going, gets you thinking about the deck and set 10, again, I put things in here like Jasmine's and Robin Hood's because evasions are very popular right now. Doesn't mean evasions will be very popular in the next set, but it's just something to get your brain working. But yeah, and the reason why I've called it a 2-4-6 is just that we can now effectively achieve that ramp on 2, 4, 6 and get to those 6 drops as easily as we can. And that's just really, really quite good for us, I think. It gives the deck a sort of game plan, and the ramp Sapphire Steel kind of can come back into, hey, we have an engine here, you know? When you talk about engines, you know, past we'd have Hiram, we'd have the whole new world to refill the hand. You know, would have like lines that the deck was supposed to take, but right now it kind of just feels like you ramp and play big characters. But now, no, it's ramp and then try and get to that Goliath to refill a bit and then keep throwing more characters on the board. And I went for putting Doc in there, but I think you can swap it around beyond the horizon, mainly because if we're hoping to draw the same way that we are with Goliath, which is he'll give us 2 cards, Doc kind of just fits into that game plan as well because he'll give us 2 cards and then we can kind of play the deck expecting to always draw up to 2 cards later on in the game. But that's kind of my approach to it. I think we can also be quite a proactive deck as well, which will be very good for week 1 because we'll be able to just ramp up and throw these big bodies out and answer all their stuff and just, you know, roll over with huge questing power because we've got Vincenzo on the board or whatever. Kind of the way it works right now. It's a bit slow for the first 3 or 4 turns and then it kind of gets really powerful. But of course we need to see how all the other decks fold out. I mean, we're hearing amazing things from Green, like Green is going to have these huge board wipes with Prince Philip being able to place 1 damage counter across the board, so playing around ward and resist, which is nuts, and then playing Prince Philip the 9 cost that banishes all damage characters. That seems pretty good. And I think there's also one thing that's worth mentioning. We've got this card in here. I'll talk about that in a second as well, but this card, I think, is the interesting one, is Lexington. He's not the only one out there like this. He has the Stone by Day feature, so he's probably maybe a bit of a worse example, but there is an Amber Bagheera as well, who is a 3-cost 4/4. So just in general, stat lines are getting a bit bigger, and it looks like every color combo, or every color got access to a 2-drop 3/3. So in general, just stats are getting a lot bigger. So you have a card like this that can answer a genie, and it's fairly effective. Whereas before we had the Ally Genie, the Dragon Genie, I think it got called, which is a 3/4. And has evasion. So now you can kind of just play these characters down that can say, if you ever played the purple genie, we can easily trade up and remove that card. So, and Dumbo as well is just, I mean, Dumbo was a threateningly bad stat line for a character anyway, but now it's even worse, you know, not even 1-for-1ing with stuff like this. You know, it just getting a bit crazy, and for Steel to have access to this, so Amber, like anything you pair with Steel, Amber, Ruby, Purple, Blue, all can get access to a card like this is quite interesting, and that's why a lot of people online are saying that the game will just look very different, and I think it is true. I've just used Lexington as an example, just the fact that a 4/4 as a like stat for a 3-cost is just huge. You know, before we had things like Lawrence or the Cobra, you know, they were 4/4s, but they came with massive sort of, not massive, but they came with drawbacks. You know, one was an illusion, and one, once he took damage, would lose his strength. That one had a little bit more a buff thing because it quested for 2. But, you know, just overall, we're looking at 5 drops that have, there's a 4-drop that's a just ridiculously high stats. There's loads of characters that just have ridiculously high stats. So Lexington is one of them I've seen posted around, and the one that had BB revealed recently, which was hurled his Thunderbolt, which again, it kind of just draws back to my point a little bit more, that if we're doing so this deals 4 damage and it gives your deities +2 challenger, which is quite cool. But if we're looking at just bigger stat lines across the board, you know, the Goliath character, which is a kind of, you want to banish on site sort of target, this wouldn't even clear it. You know, we're only doing 4 and it has 5 health. And so what are we really clearing this? We can clear that Lexington character, we can, but we'd also have to have a singer 4 of this. So only really things like Amber that could sing it from Troubadour would be valuing that quite well to take out the 3 drops, like guaranteed removal of all 3 drops. So this was the kind of the question I thought to myself, really, and I don't think others aren't thinking about it as well. But if you're dealing for, it's a nerf to Zeus, isn't it? Something like the Temu version of Zeus. Along came Zeus. You know, it's just a bit cheaper. No, it's the same cost, sorry, but it doesn't do as much damage. And stat lines are getting bigger as well. So it's just, does this card still have a lot of relevance really in the next set? So we'll see. I think that's just an interesting point. I don't know myself. I still feel like 4 damage is pretty good, especially right now. if you were to throw this card into set 9, it would be very interesting. You know, Tiana's, Genies, all Dumbos, all those things just get removed. All the high value targets are just removed. So the presence of a card like this can kind of push the set 9 meta away and create a whole new set 10 meta where people are really heavy on just really high statted bodies, because we can do that now. Even like this, we've got a 5 cost 5/6. You know, 5/6 is a stat line you'd put towards something like Clarabelle, which is a 7 drop, and that we get to play this just on turn 5. This Daisy Duck card is pretty interesting. You know, all your other characters gain resist +1, which is sort of close to what Cogsworth was doing, but this is just for your Sapphire type characters. So it's one that I want to explore. I think it's quite interesting. I feel like you could just put 2 Quester Pip on that and it wouldn't be broken, but that's just me wanting it to basically be Cogsworth. So I found this card quite interesting to look at, but again, I think if you were to put it in Kiwi, I think it's the best one I'd want to try it in. You're not really going to be getting those Nalas, getting the resist. It would make Alice a bit more of an awkward character to remove, but that's about it. But that was just an interesting card I wanted to look over again quickly. I think I had it in here as a spreadsheet and I was in my slides, and I was going to talk way more on it, and then I realized that there's not much to talk about besides it looks kind of like Cogsworth and it could help Alice. But no, this is just sort of my ideas and thoughts on set 10 sort of Sapphire Steel, and we're looking at getting that double ramp. You know, we have to look past the things we used to do in the past with Quill and Whole New World, and the way we're working right now is, I think most effectively, is Sapphire decks can just do this double ramp play, and as long as they have a topper that can refill the hand, so Goliath is going to be a good one for them. It's another reason why I put the Robin Hood in there. I like that he draws you 1 card basically always, because you've been heavily like aggressively ramping, which you have been if you've been ramping for 2 turns. I think that's pretty aggressive. You end up just kind of at a point where you get to get 1 card, and then you can combo that into maybe that 1 card as a Hades, and then you play that out, and then you can get your Namari set up so you can draw and discard. But yeah, this is just sort of set 10's approach, I think. Something to maybe get people thinking about it, because it's only really around the corner. I think after Milwaukee is gone, this is going to be the hot topic for a lot of players. But just thought I would post something a bit different, because I didn't really have much to say on the Milwaukee one. I think the meta is sort of very figured out, and I hope everyone's going to have a very good time though, and see who wins that.